Can the afterlife be studied scientifically? A different approach. When people hear the phrase scientific evidence for life after death, they usually expect laboratory experiments, controlled conditions, and physical measurements. And just to be clear, what I'm about to describe doesn't fit neatly into that model. But that doesn't mean life after death can't be studied in a structured, disciplined, and scientific manner. Because at its core, science isn't defined by equipment, it's defined by method. And that includes observation, pattern recognition, and replication over time. And when you look at the research surrounding life after death, most of what we currently have falls into one category: individual reports. For example, near-death experiences, past life memories, and similar accounts offer incredibly detailed insights, but they're still limited in scale, which can lead to all the confusion regarding why people have such different experiences after crossing over. But there is a way to make sense of all these different reports, and that requires a framework that makes sense of the whole process of life on the other side. Now, this is where my academic training came in very handy. My doctoral work required a thorough understanding and application of research methods which seek to evaluate different types of evidence and the kinds of conclusions that we can reasonably draw from them. And one of the most important distinctions I learned is the difference between what are called qualitative research and quantitative research. When we are talking about individual reports of the afterlife, or even a collection of individual reports, in research terms, this is what is called qualitative data. Qualitative data, like it sounds, relies upon quality of the research, typically deep and meaningful, but based on relatively small samples of people, making it difficult to identify broad predictive patterns. Instead, quantitative research, like it sounds, relies upon large quantities of data. And quantitative research typically considers 1,000 or more reports from a random sample of individuals from all walks of life. So the question becomes, what would it look like to study life after death from a quantitative perspective? And that's where I came across something really unusual. In the early 20th century, researchers associated with the Theosophical Society attempted something that involved large-scale observation. Two of the primary investigators, Dr. Annie Besant and Bishop C.W. Leadbeater, used trained clairvoyant abilities to examine thousands of cases of individuals at all stages of evolution over 4 decades, comparing observations and refining their conclusions. Now, this raises an obvious and important question. Although this is not laboratory science, it does follow scientific logic, which includes repeated observation, cross-checking between investigators, and identifying consistent patterns that emerge from a large number of cases. In addition, given the large number of individuals examined, several thousand in this case, the results they report come very close to a quantitative analysis, which allows for the observation of consistent patterns that are common for everyone who crosses over. And when you look at their conclusions, something interesting becomes evident. They describe a system governed by underlying principles, a structured progression through different states of consciousness, and consistent relationships between how a person lives their life and what they encounter after death. For instance, it was clearly found that there are broad underlying principles related to the method of soul growth through a journey through multiple planes of existence, all governed by the laws of reincarnation and karma. And, as I mentioned, these findings were consistent across thousands of individuals observed during a 40-year period. And this, to me, is the nearest thing we have to scientific proof, since the examination of such a large number of people approaches to the quantitative research method I described earlier. Further, the trained clairvoyant observers who investigated life on the other side provided instructions for developing the clairvoyant abilities needed to begin to observe some of these processes directly. And for this reason, I have every reason to accept the system they report as accurate, since this is not a system that anyone needs to accept on face value, but instead it's a system we are all invited to verify for ourselves. In the next post, I will elaborate upon the idea of trained clairvoyance and describe why that sort of disciplined approach to observation of phenomenon on the other side is absolutely necessary for obtaining accurate reports regarding what happens on the other side.